Have you ever felt like you're carrying an invisible weight that no amount of sleep, no vacation, and no distraction can lift? That persistent sense that something deep within you is calling for change, yet you can't quite put your finger on what it is or how to begin. What if I told you that in the next 24 hours, something profound could shift within you, not through force, not through complicated techniques, but through the most natural process imaginable: surrender. You see, we've been conditioned to believe that transformation requires effort, that change demands struggle, that awakening must be earned through years of dedicated practice. But what if everything we've been taught about personal evolution has been backwards? What if the very act of trying so hard is what's been blocking the breakthrough you've been seeking? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Tonight, you're about to embark on a journey that happens in complete silence, yet transforms absolutely everything. This isn't about memorizing words or following rigid steps. This is about allowing your energy to do what it naturally knows how to do when you finally stop interfering with it. Has this ever happened to you? You stop trying to solve a problem, and suddenly the solution appears effortlessly. That's because your deepest wisdom doesn't operate through force. It flows through surrender. Think of this experience as a series of invisible keys, each one designed to unlock a different layer of your being. The first key opens your physical body, allowing decades of accumulated tension to simply melt away. The second unlocks your emotional landscape, where feelings you didn't even know you were holding finally find their release. The third reaches into your consciousness itself, awakening aspects of yourself that have been dormant, waiting patiently for this exact moment. What makes this approach so different from everything else you've tried is its remarkable simplicity. There are no complicated rituals, no special equipment, no previous experience required. Your body already knows how to heal. Your energy already understands how to rebalance. Your consciousness is already primed for expansion. The only thing standing between you and this transformation is the belief that it needs to be difficult. Stay with me until the end of this journey, because what happens in these coming hours operates on a level most people never access in their entire lifetime. We're not talking about temporary relaxation or surface-level stress relief. We're talking about a fundamental recalibration of your entire energetic system, the kind of shift that people notice in your presence before you even speak a word. As you settle into this moment, something remarkable is already beginning. Your breath is slowing, your thoughts are starting to quiet. Your body recognizes something ancient and true in what you're about to experience. This isn't New Age fantasy or wishful thinking. This is your system remembering its original state of harmony, and tonight you're giving it permission to return there. The journey we're about to take together unfolds in stages, each one building naturally upon the last, and it all begins with understanding that the most powerful transformations happen not when we force them, but when we finally allow them to. Now, I want to go even deeper into what's actually happening in this moment, because there's a hidden truth about transformation that most people completely miss. You see, you didn't stumble upon this video by accident. You didn't randomly click on this title among thousands of others. Something within you recognized exactly what it needed, and that internal compass guided you here with precision you might not even consciously understand yet. Think about that for a second. In a world overflowing with noise, distractions, and endless content demanding your attention, you chose this moment. Your soul, your energy, your deepest intelligence made a decision that your conscious mind is only now catching up to. This isn't mystical thinking. This is the reality of how your subconscious operates, constantly scanning your environment for exactly what will serve your evolution, then creating seemingly random circumstances that are anything but random. The journey that's opening before you right now isn't measured in hours or days. It's measured in the subtle shifts that happen beneath the surface of your awareness. These are the changes that occur in the spaces between your thoughts, in the pauses between your breaths, in those quiet moments when your analytical mind finally stops trying to control everything. This is where real transformation lives. Not in the dramatic, visible breakthroughs we've been taught to expect, but in the almost imperceptible recalibrations that fundamentally alter how you exist in the world. If you're drawn to this kind of deep, transformative content that actually creates real shifts rather than just giving you information to think about, subscribe to the channel. Everything here is designed to meet you at the level of energy and consciousness, not just intellectual understanding. You'll want to be notified when new content drops. Here's what makes this approach so radically different from everything else you've encountered. There are no goals to achieve tonight. I know that sounds counterintuitive in a culture obsessed with achievement, progress, and measurable results. But that entire mindset is precisely what's been keeping you stuck. The moment you set a goal, you create tension between where you are and where you think you should be. That tension becomes resistance. And resistance is the enemy of flow. What I'm inviting you into requires nothing from you except permission. You don't need to achieve a special state of consciousness. You don't need to understand every concept intellectually. You don't need to remember specific techniques or follow complicated steps. In fact, the more you try to do any of those things, the more you'll block the natural process that's already beginning to unfold within you. All that's being asked is that you listen, not with your mind analyzing and categorizing every word, but with your entire being simply receiving, that you breathe not in any special pattern or rhythm, but just allowing the breath to move through you as it naturally wants to, and that you permit yourself to be exactly as you are in this moment, without judgment, without the need to fix or improve anything. This might be the first time in years, maybe decades, that you've given yourself permission to exist without an agenda. We're so conditioned to constantly strive, achieve, and become something other than what we are, that we've forgotten the profound power of simply being. But your body hasn't forgotten. Your energy hasn't forgotten. And tonight, they're remembering. As you continue listening, you might notice your breathing has already changed without you trying to change it. You might feel a softness entering muscles you didn't even realize were tense. These aren't things you're making happen. They're responses to an environment of complete acceptance you're creating simply by releasing the need to control the outcome. This is your system recognizing safety, recognizing permission, recognizing that for once, nothing is demanded of it except to return to its natural state of balance. The impact of what's unfolding here will reveal itself in ways you cannot predict or plan. Some people notice shifts immediately. Others discover days later that something fundamental has changed in how they respond to life. What matters isn't the timeline. It's the decision you made to show up and allow this process to work through you. If this resonates with you, write in the comments, "I'm ready to allow." Now, something extraordinary is beginning to happen that most people never consciously experience, even though it's always available to them. The very atmosphere around you is shifting. It's subtle at first, but if you pay attention without forcing anything, you'll notice that the space you're occupying feels different. Somehow more generous, more accommodating, as if the air itself is making room for you to fully exist. This isn't imagination or wishful thinking. This is your energetic presence expanding beyond the habitual boundaries you've unconsciously maintained for years, maybe your entire life. You see, most of us spend our days in a state of energetic contraction. We shrink ourselves to fit into environments that don't truly welcome our full expression. We compress our energy to avoid taking up too much space, to not be too much, to stay safely contained within invisible limits we never consciously chose. But right now, in this moment, your presence is asking permission to occupy its true dimension. And here's the revelation that changes everything. That permission doesn't come from outside, it comes from within. Your energy has been waiting, perhaps for decades, for you to simply stop contracting and allow it to expand into the space it naturally wants to occupy. The decision to do that is happening right now, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. What you're experiencing is your energetic field beginning to activate and remember itself. Think of it like a muscle that's been clenched for so long it forgot it had the option to relax. Your field, this invisible but very real electromagnetic presence that extends beyond your physical body, has been holding on, holding tensions that belong to situations that ended years ago, gripping emotions that were never fully processed, carrying ideas about who you should be that never aligned with who you actually are, storing memories that weighed you down without serving any useful purpose. All of that contracted energy creates density. It makes you feel heavy even when nothing externally has changed. It limits your perception, narrows your possibilities, and keeps you operating from a fraction of your true capacity. But here's what most people never understand. You're not stuck with that density. Your field knows exactly how to release it when conditions are right. And tonight, those conditions are aligning. The process happening within you right now is similar to what happens when you've been holding your breath and finally exhale. There's no technique required, no special knowledge needed. Your body already knows how to breathe. Your field already knows how to release. The only thing that's been stopping it is the unconscious belief that it's not safe to let go, that you need to maintain control, that relaxation equals vulnerability. But something deeper in you recognizes the truth. Holding on is what makes you vulnerable. Contraction is what creates fragility. True strength comes from flexibility, from flow, from the ability to expand and contract naturally in response to life, rather than remaining frozen in a defensive posture that no longer serves you. Your energetic field is remembering this ancient wisdom right now, and with that memory comes release. You might feel warmth spreading through your body. You might notice your breath deepening without effort. You might sense a softness entering areas that have been rigid for longer than you can remember. These aren't things you're creating. They're natural responses to your field finally receiving permission to stop gripping, stop protecting, stop defending against threats that either never existed or disappeared long ago. The impact of this shift extends far beyond this moment. When your energetic presence expands and your field relaxes, you literally change how you interact with reality. People respond to you differently, though they won't be able to articulate why. Opportunities appear that were always there but somehow invisible when you were contracted. Solutions to long-standing problems emerge effortlessly because you're no longer blocking the flow of insight with tension. This is the hidden truth behind every genuine transformation. It's not about adding something new or becoming someone different. It's about removing the layers of contraction that have been obscuring who you've always been. Your true nature isn't something you need to achieve or earn. It's something you remember when you finally stop pretending to be smaller than you are. If you're feeling this shift happening, write in the comments, "I feel the space opening." Now, as this opening continues to deepen, your entire system is entering a phase that most people never consciously access because they never create the conditions for it to occur. What's happening now goes beyond simple relaxation or stress relief. This is your body, mind, and energy moving into a state of authentic rest. The kind that doesn't just pause the chaos, but actually allows your complete system to recognize something profound. It no longer needs to hold on to everything it's been carrying. Think about how we live most of our lives. We accumulate experiences, emotions, thoughts, and impressions constantly, but we rarely create the space to process and release them. It's like filling a container day after day without ever emptying it. Eventually, that container becomes so full that there's no room for anything new, anything fresh, anything that could actually serve your evolution right now. But your system is incredibly intelligent. When you finally give it genuine rest, not just sleep, but this deeper form of permission to let go, it immediately begins sorting through everything it's been storing, identifying what still serves you and what's simply dead weight. This cleansing that's unfolding within you right now isn't something you need to direct or manage. In fact, any attempt to control it would only interfere with the natural intelligence of the process. Your body knows exactly what needs to be released. Your energy understands precisely which patterns are ready to dissolve. Your mind recognizes which beliefs and stories have outlived their usefulness. The wisdom required for this purification doesn't come from techniques or methods. It's built into your very design. What makes this so different from other approaches to personal growth is the gentleness of it. There's no forcing, no dramatic catharsis, no need to relive painful memories or wrestle with your shadows. This is a silent, almost invisible movement happening beneath the surface of your awareness. It's like snow melting in spring. You don't see it happening moment by moment, but the landscape transforms nonetheless. Every thought you've ever had, every emotion you've experienced, every encounter that affected you has left an imprint on your energetic field. Some of these imprints served important purposes. They taught you, protected you, helped you navigate challenging situations, but many of them are simply residue, energetic debris that's been accumulating for years or decades without you realizing it was there. Tonight, your energy has decided it's ready to release what no longer belongs. You might notice subtle sensations moving through your body, a warmth in your chest, a tingling in your hands, a softness in your jaw or shoulders. These aren't random. They're signs that specific areas are letting go of tension patterns they've been holding, sometimes since childhood. Your system is incredibly precise in this work. It knows exactly where to go, what to release, and how to do it without overwhelming you. Here's the hidden truth about transformation that the self-improvement industry doesn't want you to know. Real change doesn't require effort. It requires the exact opposite, a willingness to stop efforting and allow your natural intelligence to do what it's always been capable of doing. We've been taught that we need to work hard to change, that transformation is supposed to be difficult and painful, but that's only true when we're forcing change from the level of the ego, trying to become something we're not. When we allow change to emerge from the deeper levels of our being, it happens with an ease that can feel almost suspicious to a mind conditioned to believe that anything worthwhile must be difficult. The purification happening right now is recalibrating your entire energetic signature. Patterns that kept you playing small are dissolving. Defensive mechanisms that once protected you but now only isolate you are softening. Beliefs about limitation that you absorb from others are being recognized as foreign to your true nature and gently released. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been beneath the layers of conditioning and accumulated experience. As this continues, you might feel lighter without knowing exactly why. You might sense spaciousness opening up inside you that wasn't there before. The journey you're on isn't about adding more to your life. It's about subtracting everything that was never truly yours to begin with, revealing the clarity and power that were always present, just obscured. If you're noticing these shifts, even subtly, write in the comments, I'm releasing what no longer serves. Now, as this purification deepens, something remarkable is happening that you might not consciously perceive, but your body absolutely recognizes. Imagine a house that's been closed up for years, windows shut, air stagnant, dust settling into every corner. Then one day, someone opens all the windows at once. Fresh air begins to move through every room, not violently, not forcefully, but with an unhurried patience that gradually reaches even the most forgotten spaces. That's exactly what's occurring within you right now. The sediments that have been sitting in the quietest corners of your interior, places you might not even know exist, are beginning to stir. These aren't just physical tensions, though your body certainly holds them. These are emotional residues from experiences you thought you'd processed. Mental patterns you assumed were just part of who you are, energetic imprints left by people and situations that affected you more deeply than you realized at the time. All of this has been accumulating, layer upon layer, creating a kind of density that you've grown so accustomed to that you stopped noticing it was there. Here's what's fascinating about this process. You don't need to go searching for these sediments. You don't need to dig through your past, analyze your childhood, or intellectually understand where each tension originated. That entire approach actually interferes with the natural intelligence of your energy, which knows exactly where to go and what to do without any input from your conscious mind. This is happening at a level far deeper than thought, in the realm where your body and energy communicate in a language that has nothing to do with words. The breath you're taking right now, this simple automatic function you've performed millions of times without thinking, is becoming something more. Each inhalation is like a river of clear, fresh consciousness entering your system. But this isn't just oxygen feeding your cells, though that's certainly happening. This breath is carrying awareness into every internal space where you've stored tensions that were never given names, feelings that were never fully felt, reactions that became frozen in your tissues because there was no safe space to release them when they first arose. As this conscious river of air moves through you, it doesn't force anything or demand immediate change. It simply touches these stored patterns with gentle presence, and that contact alone begins the dissolution. The exhalation becomes the current that carries away what has completed its cycle. You're not pushing anything out or trying to purge yourself. You're simply allowing the natural rhythm of breath to do what it's always been designed to do. Circulate energy, refresh your system, and remove what's no longer needed. Most people go their entire lives breathing mechanically, never recognizing the transformative power available in this simple act. But when breath becomes conscious, when it's allowed to flow with awareness rather than habit, it turns into one of the most powerful tools for internal cleansing that exists. And the beauty is that it requires absolutely nothing from you except non-interference. Your body knows how to breathe. Your energy knows how to release. The only thing that ever blocked this natural process was the unconscious belief that you needed to control it. Right now, with each breath, you're witnessing a behind-the-scenes revelation that changes everything about how transformation actually works. There's no need for complicated techniques or years of therapy or dramatic breakthroughs. There's only this: creating the conditions for your system's innate wisdom to do what it's always wanted to do, but never had permission to complete. Every exhale is an act of letting go. Every inhale is an invitation for renewal. And this cycle continues whether you're paying attention or not, though paying attention without controlling amplifies its impact exponentially. You might notice that your breathing has shifted on its own. Maybe it's deeper now, slower, more rhythmic. Maybe you're feeling movement in areas that have been numb or stuck for longer than you can remember. These aren't things you're making happen. They're your system's response to finally being given space to function as it was designed to function, without the constant interference of mental control and emotional suppression. The journey inward continues with each breath, reaching places that words could never touch, clearing pathways that thought could never access, restoring a flow that was always meant to be effortless. If this feels true in your experience right now, write in the comments, "My breath is clearing the way." Now, as the clearing continues its work, you're entering a profoundly different phase of this journey, one that most people never reach because they stop at the release and never give themselves permission to experience what comes after. You see, there's a hidden truth about transformation that changes everything once you understand it. Releasing what no longer serves is only half of the process. The other half, the part that actually creates lasting change, is what happens in the silence after the letting go. This is where real rebuilding begins. Not the kind of rebuilding where you try to construct a better version of yourself through willpower and effort, but the organic regeneration that occurs when your system is finally given space to remember its original design. Think of it like a stream that's been cluttered with debris for years. Once the blockages are cleared and the water flows freely again, it doesn't just flow randomly. It naturally finds the most efficient path, carving channels that were always meant to be there but had been obscured. Right now, in this deepening calm, your energetic system is doing exactly that. It's reorganizing itself without any conscious direction from you. This isn't about imposing a new structure or trying to become something you're not. This is your energy, remembering an ancient form that's been encoded in you since before you were born. A blueprint of coherence that's always been there, waiting patiently beneath the layers of conditioning and adaptation and survival strategies you accumulated over the years. Every breath you take now isn't just moving air through your lungs. It's becoming an impulse that activates this interior memory. With each inhalation, you're breathing life into patterns of wholeness that your system recognizes at a cellular level. With each exhalation, you're allowing those patterns to settle more deeply into your being. This is happening whether you're consciously aware of it or not. But awareness, this gentle, non-interfering attention you're bringing right now, amplifies the process in ways that create profound and lasting impact. Here's what makes this stage so powerful. True change doesn't announce itself with fanfare or dramatic breakthroughs. The transformations that actually stick, the ones that fundamentally alter how you move through the world, happen in silence. They occur in moments like this when you're not trying to achieve anything, when you're simply present with what is, allowing your deeper intelligence to do its work without the interference of the ego's agenda. Most approaches to personal growth are built on the assumption that you're broken and need fixing, that you're incomplete and need to add something to become whole. But that entire mindset creates the very problems it claims to solve because it reinforces the belief in your inadequacy. What's happening right now operates from a completely different understanding. You're not broken. You've never been broken. You've simply forgotten your natural state, and now, in this silence, you're remembering. The reorganization taking place within you is restoring connections that were severed, reactivating capacities that went dormant, realigning your energy with the fundamental frequency of coherence that underlies all of creation. This isn't abstract spirituality. This is the practical mechanics of how your energetic system functions when it's not being constantly disrupted by stress, fear, and the need to protect yourself from a world you've been taught to perceive as threatening. As this ancient form reasserts itself, you might notice changes that seem subtle at first, but have far-reaching consequences. Decisions that used to feel impossible become clear. Relationships that were draining start to either transform or naturally fall away. Opportunities that were invisible suddenly become obvious. These aren't coincidences. They're the natural result of your energy operating from its true structure rather than the distorted patterns you'd adapted to. The silence you're experiencing right now isn't empty. It's full. It's pregnant with possibility, thick with potential. alive with the quiet power of transformation that doesn't need to prove itself or announce its presence. This is the kind of change that people notice in you before you notice it yourself, the shift in your presence that alters how others respond to you without anyone being able to articulate exactly what's different. If you're feeling this quiet rebuilding happening within you, write in the comments, "I remember who I am." Now, what I'm about to share with you reveals something most people will never discover about their own bodies, not because it's secret or esoteric, but because we've been taught to see ourselves as solid, separate, mechanical, when the truth is far more extraordinary. Within you right now exist thousands upon thousands of filaments of light. These aren't metaphorical or symbolic. They're actual energetic pathways, fine threads that connect every cell to every other cell, every tissue to every organ, creating an intricate network so vast and complex that it makes the internet look primitive by comparison. For most of your life, these filaments have been operating below their natural capacity. Stress, trauma, disconnection, and the constant assault of a world that demands you fragment yourself to function. All of this has caused these threads to dim, to tangle, to lose the vibrant tone they were designed to carry. But tonight, something is shifting. These filaments are beginning to recover their natural resonance. They're stretching gently, like muscles waking up after a long sleep. They're clearing themselves of the static and interference that's accumulated over years. And most remarkably, they're reigniting with a clarity of signal that fundamentally changes how information moves through your entire system. This is the hidden architecture of transformation that no one talks about because it happens beneath the level of thought, beyond the reach of language. When these filaments begin functioning as they should, the communication between different parts of your being becomes instantaneous and accurate. Your gut feelings become clearer. Your intuitive knowing sharpens. The disconnect you've always felt between what you think, what you feel, and what you do begins to dissolve because the pathways connecting these aspects of yourself are finally conducting energy the way they were meant to. You might be experiencing this as a tingling sensation, or warmth spreading through areas that have felt cold or numb for longer than you remember. You might notice that thoughts are flowing differently, less chaotic, more coherent. These aren't random effects. They're your system's response to its own internal network coming back online at full capacity. The impact of this goes far beyond what you can perceive in this moment. This rewiring is creating new possibilities for how you process information, make decisions, and respond to life. But here's where something even more profound begins to emerge. As these filaments activate and your energy reorganizes itself, a natural deceleration starts to occur. This isn't slowing down in the sense of becoming sluggish or losing vitality. This is the settling that happens when chaos finds its order, when turbulence discovers stillness, when scattered energy finally locates its center. The movement that's been happening within you, the expansion, the cleansing, the reorganization, is now beginning to find its equilibrium point. Think about water after it's been stirred. For a while it swirls and churns, but eventually, if left undisturbed, it settles into perfect stillness. That stillness isn't the absence of energy, it's energy in its most powerful form, potential waiting to move in exactly the right direction at exactly the right moment. This is what's happening inside you now. The frenetic activity of your usual state is giving way to something far more potent. Calm that's rooted so deeply it can't be shaken by external circumstances. This is where true transformation takes root. Not in the dramatic moments of breakthrough or the intense peaks of emotional release, but in this profound settling where your energy stops seeking, stops striving, stops defending, and simply rests in its own nature. From this place of deep calm, everything becomes possible because you're no longer fighting against yourself. The internal conflicts that drained your energy for years begin to resolve not through effort, but through the simple fact that your system has found its natural state of coherence. The calm being born within you right now isn't temporary relaxation that will disappear the moment you face your next challenge. This is structural change, the establishment of a new baseline for how your nervous system operates, how your energy moves, how your consciousness relates to experience itself. This is the foundation upon which everything else in your life will begin to reorganize, and it's happening not because you're doing anything right, but because you've finally stopped doing so many things wrong. If you're sensing this deep settling taking place, write in the comments, "I've found my center." Now, something shifts in the quality of this experience that marks a fundamental transition in how transformation actually completes itself. You've moved through the releasing, through the reorganizing, through the settling into calm. And here's where most people miss the most crucial part of the entire journey, because they're so conditioned to always be working toward the next thing, the next level, the next breakthrough. But what if I told you that the most powerful thing you can do right now is nothing at all? This isn't passive resignation or giving up. This is the active choice to remain, to stay exactly where you are, in what has already been ordered within you, without the impulse to push forward or the fear of sliding backward. Most of us spend our entire lives in constant motion, either running towards something we think will complete us or running away from something we're afraid will destroy us. But true power doesn't live in either of those movements. It lives in the capacity to remain present with what is, without needing it to be different. The stage of release has fulfilled its function. You've let go of what needed to go. The reconstruction has done its work. Your energy has remembered its natural form. Now comes something simpler, yet infinitely deeper. The decision to stop seeking and simply be what you've already become. This is where transformation either takes permanent root or dissolves back into old patterns. And the difference comes down to one thing: your willingness to remain in the new state without constantly checking to see if it's working, without testing it, without the anxious need to prove to yourself that something has actually changed. Here's the hidden truth that changes everything. The power to remain is the foundation of all lasting transformation. Anyone can have a breakthrough. Anyone can experience a moment of clarity or expansion. But how many people can stay there? How many can resist the gravitational pull back to familiar suffering, the seductive comfort of old patterns that at least have the advantage of being known? The answer is very few, and it's not because they lack willpower or commitment. It's because they were never taught that remaining is itself a practice, a choice, a form of power that must be consciously claimed. As you settle into this state of remaining, something organic begins to happen that requires no effort from you whatsoever. From within you, energetic roots start to descend. You might feel this as a downward pull, a sense of weight that isn't heavy but grounding, like an invisible anchor gently securing you to something far more stable than your thoughts or emotions could ever be. These roots aren't physical. You won't find them in any anatomy textbook, but they're absolutely real in the energetic dimension where so much of your actual experience is determined. These roots move through whatever surface you're resting on and enter directly into the earth itself, creating lines of connection that link your personal energy field to the massive, stable, enduring presence of the planet. Think about what this means. The Earth has been here for billions of years. It's weathered asteroid impacts, ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and countless cycles of creation and destruction. Its stability isn't the fragile kind that depends on circumstances remaining favorable. It's the deep, unshakable stability that comes from being so fundamentally grounded in its own nature that external conditions simply don't have the power to destabilize it. And right now, you're tapping into that same quality of stability. not by trying to become more grounded or working to develop better coping strategies, but simply by allowing your energy to connect with the energy that's always been there, waiting for you to stop resisting it and let yourself be held. This connection creates a feedback loop that most people never access. The Earth's stability flows into you, giving you a sense of being held that has nothing to do with your circumstances. And your presence, your consciousness, flows into the Earth, contributing to the collective field of awareness that's awakening across the planet. The impact of this rooting goes far beyond personal benefit. When you're truly grounded, connected to something larger than your individual concerns, you become unshakable in a way that naturally affects everyone around you. Your calm becomes contagious. Your presence becomes medicine. People feel safer in your field without knowing why. If you're feeling these roots establishing themselves, write in the comments, "I'm grounded in what is." Now, as this grounding deepens and your roots establish themselves in the stability of the Earth, something extraordinary begins to unfold that represents a complete shift in how you interact with reality itself. The calm you've been cultivating isn't meant to stay locked inside you like a secret you're hoarding. It has its own intelligence, its own momentum, and when it reaches a certain depth, it naturally begins to express itself in the world around you. This is the opening of consciousness that most people never experience because they stop the process too early, mistaking inner peace for the destination when it's actually just the beginning. What's happening now is that the internal vibration you've been developing, this frequency of coherence and calm, is starting to take form in your external reality. And here's the revelation that changes everything about how you understand manifestation and influence. There's no separation between what's happening inside you and what appears outside you. They're not two different things that occasionally interact. They're one continuous movement, one unified field, where your internal state and your external circumstances respond to each other like a faithful echo bouncing between canyon walls. Most approaches to changing your life focus on manipulating external conditions, working harder, strategizing better, controlling outcomes. But that's exhausting and ultimately ineffective because you're trying to change the echo while ignoring the original sound. What you're experiencing right now operates from the opposite direction. You're not trying to change anything outside. You're simply allowing your internal state to settle into its natural coherence, and the external world, being inseparable from you, has no choice but to rearrange itself to match. This isn't mysticism or wishful thinking. This is how reality actually functions at the quantum level, where observation affects outcome, where consciousness and matter are revealed to be different expressions of the same underlying field. You are not a separate observer looking at an objective world. You are an active participant whose very state of being influences the patterns that emerge in your experience. And when your state shifts from fragmentation to coherence, from resistance to flow, from fear to calm, the world shifts with you. Every breath you're taking now is becoming something more than a physiological function. It's becoming a gesture of silent growth, so subtle you might barely notice it, yet profound in its cumulative effect. What has been gathering at your center, this concentrated field of calm, clarity, and coherence, is now beginning to radiate outward. Not because you're pushing it out or trying to project it, but because that's simply what coherent energy does. It expands naturally, the way heat doesn't struggle to warm a room, but simply fills whatever space is available. This expansion happens without effort, which is precisely why it's so powerful. Anything you force carries the frequency of force and creates resistance. But what expands naturally, like your breath, like the dawn, like a flower opening to the sun, moves through the world. Without triggering defensive reactions, people feel your calm and drop their guard. Situations feel your clarity and resolve themselves. Opportunities sense your coherence and arrange themselves along your path. You might notice over the coming days and weeks that things start happening differently for you. Conversations that would have been difficult become easy. Conflicts that would have escalated dissolve before they form. People who would have challenged you find themselves inexplicably cooperative. These aren't coincidences or lucky breaks. They're the direct result of your energy field operating at a different frequency. Your presence is literally creating a field effect that influences everything within its range, and as your coherence deepens, that range extends further than you might imagine. The hidden truth here is that you've always had this influence. You've always been affecting your environment through your energetic state. The difference is that now you're doing it consciously from a place of alignment rather than fragmentation, which means the effects are harmonious rather than chaotic. You're not manipulating or controlling. You're simply being so clear in your own frequency that reality around you clarifies to match. If you're feeling this natural expansion beginning, write in the comments, "My inner state is becoming my outer world." Now, as this expansion continues and your presence begins reshaping the field around you, there's a recognition that wants to emerge. Something so simple that your mind might dismiss it, yet so profound that when it lands in your direct experience, rather than just your understanding, it changes your relationship to existence itself. The air moving in and out of your lungs right now, this breath that seems so personal, so uniquely yours, is the exact same air that's moving the tides across thousands of miles of ocean. It's the same air currents that allow birds to soar without effort, riding invisible highways through the sky. It's the same atmospheric presence that drives every weather pattern, every seasonal shift, every cycle that keeps this planet alive and thriving. When you really let that sink in, not as an interesting fact, but as a felt experience in your body, something cracks open. The illusion of separation, which has felt so convincing your entire life, reveals itself as exactly that, an illusion. You're not a separate entity borrowing air from an external environment. You are a localized expression of the same unified field that expresses itself as ocean and bird and atmosphere and tree. The boundary you thought existed between you and everything else is nothing more than a conceptual line drawn by a mind trained to see division where there is only continuous flow. This recognition doesn't come from thinking about it harder or trying to believe it. It arises naturally when your energy settles into the coherence you've been cultivating. In that settled state, the artificial boundaries dissolve, and what remains is direct perception of how intimately connected you actually are to everything. The breath becomes a constant reminder, a visceral proof that occurs every few seconds. You are not separate from this world. You are this world, experiencing itself from a particular vantage point. And here's where something deeply practical emerges from what might sound like abstract spirituality. When you recognize your fundamental unity with all of life, you stop operating from the isolated defensive position that creates so much unnecessary suffering. The decisions you make shift because you're no longer trying to grab your piece of a limited pie. You recognize yourself as part of the whole pie. The way you relate to others transforms because you're no longer seeing them as separate beings who might threaten your interests. You're experiencing them as other expressions of the same consciousness that's looking out through your eyes right now. As this recognition deepens and your energy continues to stabilize in this new understanding, something else begins to happen that represents the natural culmination of everything that's occurred so far. Your energy starts to orient itself towards something that's been there all along, but couldn't be perceived through the noise of fragmentation. All energy, when it stabilizes, naturally finds its course. It's like a river that's been scattered across a floodplain. Once the waters gather and find their channel, they don't need to be told which direction to flow. They simply recognize the path that leads them toward completion, toward the ocean that's been calling them home since the first raindrop fell. This is what's happening with your energy right now. As it stabilizes in coherence, as it recognizes its unity with all of life, it begins to orient itself toward your purpose. And here's the hidden truth that the entire personal development industry seems designed to obscure. Your purpose isn't something you need to find, figure out, or create. It's not hiding somewhere in the external world, waiting for you to discover it through the right workshop or the perfect mentor or enough trial and error. Your purpose has always lived in the heart of your energy, encoded in your very structure, waiting for the moment when you became quiet enough to hear its voice. That voice doesn't speak in words or clear instructions. It speaks in pull, in resonance, in the unmistakable feeling of yes, this, that arises when you encounter something aligned with your deepest nature. As your energy orients itself, you'll notice this magnetic quality becoming stronger. Certain paths will feel right in a way you can't explain. Certain decisions will carry a sense of inevitability. This isn't fate controlling you. It's your own deepest intelligence finally getting clear enough signal to guide you without the constant interference of fear and conditioning. If this orientation toward purpose is becoming clear, write in the comments, "I feel my path emerging." Now, as your energy continues to orient itself toward this purpose that's been waiting within you, there's a specific location where this becomes tangible, where the abstract becomes experiential in a way that grounds everything we've been exploring. In the center of your chest, right now, there exists a point of light, and if you bring your awareness there gently, without forcing anything, you might begin to sense it. This isn't visualization or imagination. This is direct perception of your energetic anatomy, the part of you that exists beyond the physical body but is no less real. This light at your heart center is vibrating at a very precise frequency, and here's what makes this so significant. That frequency is absolutely unique to you. In the entire vast concert of existence, with billions of humans on this planet and countless other forms of consciousness throughout the universe, your frequency has never existed before and will never exist again. It's your signature, your energetic fingerprint, the specific note that only you can contribute to the symphony of creation. Every person you've ever met, every experience you've ever had, every decision you've made has refined this frequency, tuning it to its current precision. Most people go their entire lives without ever consciously connecting with this frequency. They know something is there. They feel it in moments of deep authenticity, in those rare instances when they're so aligned with themselves that there's no gap between who they are and what they're expressing. But they don't know how to access it reliably, so it remains this elusive thing that appears and disappears seemingly at random. What's happening right now is different. You're not just having a passing encounter with your unique frequency, you're establishing a conscious relationship with it that will fundamentally change how you navigate your life. This frequency is what your purpose expresses through. And here's where everything you've been taught about finding your purpose gets turned upside down. Purpose doesn't reveal itself as a clear mission statement or a defined career path or a specific set of actions you're meant to take. Those are all mental constructs, attempts to pin down something that's far more fluid and alive than any concept could capture. Your actual purpose is a sensation, an internal orientation that guides you moment by moment, if you're present enough to feel it. It's that quiet knowing that says yes when something truly aligns with who you are, even if it makes no logical sense. It's the gentle but firm no that arises when you're being pulled in a direction that might look good on paper, but feels wrong in your body. It's the magnetic pull towards certain people, places, and possibilities that your rational mind can't explain, but your energy recognizes instantly. This is purpose operating in real time, not as a destination you're trying to reach, but as a continuous flow you're learning to surrender to. The impact of connecting with your purpose this way, rather than trying to figure it out mentally, is profound. When you're operating from your unique frequency, from that sensation of rightness in your chest, you stop second-guessing yourself constantly. The exhausting internal debate about whether you're on the right path quiets down because you have a more reliable guidance system than thought. You have direct, energetic knowing. Decisions that used to take weeks of analysis happen in seconds. Opportunities that are truly aligned with your path become obvious, while distractions lose their power to pull you off course. This isn't about becoming rigid or following some predetermined script. It's about becoming so fluid, so responsive to the present moment, that you can feel which direction wants to be taken right now. Your purpose isn't static. It evolves as you evolve, deepens as you deepen, expands as you expand. But the frequency at your heart center remains the constant thread connecting all these expressions, the through line that makes your life coherent even when it doesn't follow a predictable trajectory. If you're sensing this frequency in your chest, this unique vibration that is unmistakably yours, write in the comments, "I recognize my frequency." Now, as you continue to connect with this unique frequency that pulses at your heart center, something deeper begins to stir, a movement that reaches into layers of your being you might not have known existed. There's a descent happening, not downward in the sense of regression or collapse, but inward toward the oldest, most protected parts of your energetic structure. Light is moving into the deepest chambers where you've been storing things you couldn't process when they first happened, memories that never got fully metabolized, experiences that left imprints you've been carrying without conscious awareness. Every human being guards these silent traces of the past. They're not necessarily traumatic in the dramatic sense, though some may be. More often, they're the accumulated residue of moments when you had to shut down a part of yourself to survive, when you had to suppress a feeling because it wasn't safe to express, when you absorbed someone else's energy and didn't know how to release it. These imprints have been waiting, stored in your cellular memory, your energetic field, the very tissues of your body, for the right conditions to finally let them go. Tonight, those conditions have arrived. Your body, in its infinite wisdom, recognizes that you're finally stable enough, grounded enough, coherent enough to release what's been held. This isn't something you need to excavate through therapy or dig up through analysis. The intelligence of your system knows exactly what's ready to be released and what still needs to be held a bit longer. There's a perfect timing to this process that has nothing to do with your conscious agenda, and everything to do with your deeper readiness. Here's the hidden truth that changes everything about how you relate to healing. This release doesn't have to be painful. We've been conditioned to believe that transformation requires suffering, that you have to feel worse before you feel better, that healing necessarily involves reliving trauma or wrestling with your demons. But that entire framework is based on a misunderstanding of how energy actually works. What's happening right now is releasing without force, dissolving without drama, transforming without the pain we've been taught to expect. You might feel sensations moving through your body, warmth, tingling, waves of emotion that arise and pass without taking you over. These are signs that something ancient is shifting, but notice the quality of it. There's no violence here, no tearing or ripping. It's more like ice melting in spring, solid patterns becoming fluid again, weight that's been compressed for years finally, expanding into lightness. What you once experienced as fear is being seen from a higher perspective and recognized as misunderstanding. Those wounds that felt permanent are revealing themselves as temporary contractions, and as they release, they leave behind not emptiness but open space, space that can now be filled with love, with calm, with the presence you've been cultivating throughout this journey. This is transformation operating at its deepest level, addressing not just symptoms or surface patterns, but the foundational imprints that have been shaping your responses for years or even decades. The impact of what's releasing right now will ripple forward through your entire life. Relationships that have been stuck in repetitive cycles will suddenly shift. Reactions that seemed hardwired will lose their automatic quality. Patterns you've been trying to change through willpower will simply dissolve because the energetic structure holding them in place no longer exists. And the remarkable thing is that you don't need to know what's being released or understand where it came from. Your body knows, your energy knows. They're handling this with a precision that your conscious mind could never orchestrate. All that's required from you is continued permission, continued trust in the process, continued willingness to let your deeper intelligence do its work without interference. As this ancient material releases, you might notice yourself taking deeper breaths, as if your lungs are remembering they have more capacity than you've been using. You might feel your posture shifting, your shoulders dropping, your jaw unclenching. These physical changes reflect energetic transformations happening at levels you can't directly observe but can absolutely feel the effects of. If you're experiencing this transformation without pain, this shift from weight to lightness, write in the comments, "I release with ease." Now, as this profound release continues its work and ancient patterns dissolve into lightness, you're entering a stage that many people never reach because they mistake the intensity of transformation for its completion. But here's what actually happens after the storm passes, after the old structures crumble, after everything that needed to release has been let go. A settling occurs that's so natural, so organic, that you might not even notice it happening until you suddenly realize everything feels different. Think of a lake that's been churned by violent weather for days. The winds have whipped the surface into chaos. Sediment has been stirred from the bottom. The water is murky and agitated. Then, slowly, the storm passes. The winds die down. The surface gradually returns to stillness. But the water isn't the same as it was before the storm. It's clearer now because what needed to be stirred up has been released. It's deeper because channels have been carved that didn't exist before. It's more alive because it's been oxygenated, renewed, transformed by the very turbulence that seemed destructive. This is exactly what's happening within you right now. Your energy, which has been moving through such profound shifts, expanding, releasing, reorganizing, is beginning to settle into a new configuration. And in that settling, something emerges that you can't create through effort or achieve through technique. It's a quiet certainty that lives at the level of your soul, beneath the fluctuations of mood and circumstance, deeper than thought can reach. This certainty doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It doesn't need to prove itself or defend its existence. It simply is, like bedrock underneath shifting sand. Here's the hidden truth that transforms everything about how you move forward from this point. Trust isn't something you build. You've been told your whole life that trust must be earned, that it develops gradually through positive experiences, that it's constructed piece by piece, like a wall you erect for protection. But that's the ego's version of trust, and it's fragile because it depends on circumstances remaining favorable. Real trust, the kind that can't be shaken no matter what happens externally, isn't built at all. It's remembered. Trust has been with you since the moment you came into existence. Before you learned language, before you developed strategies for survival, before you absorbed the fear and doubt of the world around you, there was trust. The infant doesn't question whether the next breath will come, or whether the heart will continue beating. There's an inherent trust in the life force itself, a knowing that transcends knowledge. You had that once. You still have it. It's just been buried under layers of conditioning that taught you the world is fundamentally unsafe, that you can't rely on anything, that vigilance is the only protection against chaos. But as your energy settles into this new clarity, as the water of your being becomes still enough to reflect truth, rather than distortion, that original trust begins to surface. Not because you've convinced yourself to believe something, but because you're remembering what you knew before you learned to doubt. This remembrance changes everything about your relationship to uncertainty. When trust is something you're trying to build, every setback threatens to destroy it. When trust is something you're remembering, it reveals itself as indestructible because it was never dependent on circumstances in the first place. You might notice this as a subtle shift in your baseline state. Situations that would have triggered anxiety now meet something steadier in you. The future that seemed threatening starts to feel more like an unfolding you're curious about rather than a danger you need to prepare for. Decisions that required endless deliberation become clearer because you're consulting a deeper knowing rather than trying to predict and control outcomes. This isn't blind optimism or spiritual bypassing. It's the natural result of your system remembering its original state of trust. The impact of this remembrance extends into every area of your life. Relationships transform because you're no longer operating from a place of needing people to behave in certain ways to maintain your sense of safety. Work changes because you're no longer driven by fear-based motivation, but by alignment with your purpose. Even your body responds differently because chronic tension at its root is maintained by lack of trust in life itself. If you're feeling this quiet certainty emerging, this trust that needs no justification, write in the comments, "I remember how to trust." Now, as this trust continues to remember itself within you, something visible begins to emerge in your energetic body that gives this abstract concept a concrete anchor point you can actually feel. If you bring your awareness back to the center of your chest, that same place where your unique frequency resides, you might begin to perceive a warmth there, a soft golden light that pulses in perfect synchronization with your heartbeat. This isn't something you need to create or visualize into existence. It's already there, revealing itself now that you're quiet enough to notice. Each beat of your heart amplifies this light, makes it more stable, more present. And here's what's so significant about this. This golden glow is the visible signature of inner confidence, the kind that has absolutely nothing to do with achievements or external validation. Most people spend their entire lives building confidence on the shaky foundation of results. I'm confident because I succeeded. I'm worthy because others approve. I'm valuable because I accomplished something. But that kind of confidence is inherently fragile because it depends on circumstances remaining favorable. And life has a way of not cooperating with our need for constant validation. The light pulsing in your chest right now represents something entirely different. This is confidence born from deep recognition, the recognition of your inherent worth that exists independent of what you do or don't do, independent of who approves or disapproves, independent of success or failure in any external sense. It's the unshakable knowing that you belong here, that your existence itself is valuable, that you don't need to earn your place in the universe because you were given it the moment you came into being. As this recognition deepens and the golden light becomes more established in your chest, something profound begins to awaken that most people never consciously access. This is the emergence of what I can only describe as serene power. And understanding this completely transforms your relationship to strength, influence, and impact in the world. You see, we've been conditioned to believe that power requires force, that strength means dominance, that influence demands loud assertion of will. But that's actually the opposite of how real power operates. True power doesn't need to announce itself or prove its existence. It doesn't require recognition from others or validation from external sources. It's not measured by how much you can control or how many people follow your lead. Real power is something you perceive rather than project, something born in the deepest silence rather than in noise, anchored in profound calm rather than in agitation. And when it expresses itself, it does so with such naturalness that it doesn't feel like power at all. It feels like truth, simply being what it is. This serene power awakening in you right now changes everything about how you navigate challenges, make decisions, and interact with resistance. When you're operating from force, from the ego's version of power, every obstacle becomes a battle you must win. Every disagreement becomes a contest of wills. Every setback feels like a threat to your strength. But when you're anchored in serene power, obstacles become information. Disagreements become opportunities for understanding, and setbacks reveal themselves as redirections rather than defeats. The impact of this shift is immediately noticeable to everyone around you, though they might not be able to articulate what's different. People who would normally challenge you find themselves inexplicably cooperative. Situations that would have escalated into conflict somehow resolve themselves before reaching that point. Your presence in a room changes the energy without you saying a word. Because serene power radiates a frequency that calms agitation and invites coherence. Here's the hidden truth behind this. Serene power is actually stronger than aggressive force precisely because it doesn't create resistance. When you push against something, it pushes back. That's basic physics, but also basic human psychology. But when you remain centered in calm certainty, when you hold your position without aggression, there's nothing for others to push against. Your stability becomes magnetic, rather than repellent. People are drawn to it rather than threatened by it. If you're feeling this serene power establishing itself within you, write in the comments, "My calm is my strength." Now, as this serene power continues to establish itself, pay attention to what's happening at that same central point in your chest where the golden light has been pulsing. Something is shifting in quality, becoming denser without becoming heavier, firmer without becoming rigid, more stable without becoming static. This isn't the light rising up or projecting outward, trying to make itself known. Instead, it's settling deeper, taking root in a way that feels almost gravitational, like it's found its proper place and has no intention of being dislodged. The rhythm of this deeper vibration is different from anything you've experienced so far. It's slow, almost hypnotic in its constancy. If you synchronize your breath with it, you'll notice how it creates a sense of unshakable presence that has nothing to do with effort or willpower. This is your power-dropping anchor, establishing itself not as something you have to maintain through constant vigilance, but as something that simply is. The way a mountain doesn't work to be solid, it just is solid by its very nature. What's remarkable about this settling is how it changes your entire energetic signature. When power is unstable, constantly trying to prove itself or defend its position, it creates a frequency of tension that others unconsciously respond to with their own defensiveness. But when power settles into this deep, slow rhythm, it broadcasts a completely different message. I am here, I am stable, I am not threatened by your presence, and I don't need anything from you. That frequency is extraordinarily rare in human interactions, which is why people respond to it so powerfully when they encounter it. And here's where everything you've been cultivating throughout this journey begins to demonstrate its real-world impact in ways you can actually observe and measure. The calm that's been developing within you, this isn't just a pleasant internal state or a temporary feeling of peace. It's a fundamental reorganization of your energetic structure, and that structure doesn't stay contained within the boundaries of your skin. It radiates outward, interacting with the field of reality around you in ways that start becoming visible in your actual circumstances. On this 10th stage of the process, something begins, happening that proves beyond doubt that the internal work you've been doing isn't just psychological or spiritual abstraction. It's creating tangible changes in how the world responds to you. What lived only as silent vibration within you, this coherence and calm and trust and power now naturally begins taking form in your external reality. Not because you're trying to make it happen, not because you're using manifestation techniques or positive thinking, but because internal and external reality are not separate things. They're one continuous field, and when one side of that field shifts, the other side has no choice but to echo the change. You might start noticing this in small ways at first. A conversation you were dreading turns out to be surprisingly easy. A problem that seemed intractable suddenly has an obvious solution. Someone who's been difficult becomes inexplicably cooperative. These aren't random lucky breaks. They're the direct result of your energetic field, operating at a different frequency. The calm you're broadcasting is literally reorganizing the field of possibilities around you, making certain outcomes more likely and others less so. Here's the hidden mechanism behind this that most people never understand. Reality is far more responsive to consciousness than we've been taught to believe. The materialist worldview tells us that we're separate individuals bumping around in an objective world that doesn't care about our internal states. But quantum physics has been showing us for a century that observation affects outcome, that consciousness and matter are intimately entangled. What you're experiencing now is the practical application of that principle. Your internal state of coherence is not just affecting how you perceive reality, it's affecting how reality itself organizes around you. The impact of this becomes more pronounced the longer you maintain this state. Synchronicities multiply. The right people appear at the right time. Resources show up just when you need them. Obstacles that would have stopped you cold somehow resolve themselves before becoming real problems. This isn't mystical thinking, it's the natural result of operating from alignment rather than resistance, from flow rather than force. If you're beginning to see this reflection appearing in your world, write in the comments, "My inner peace is reshaping my reality." Now, as you witness this reflection beginning to appear in your external circumstances, it's crucial to understand the actual mechanism at work here. Because when you grasp how this operates, you can work with it consciously rather than just hoping it continues. Your energy isn't passively sitting inside you waiting to be noticed. It's constantly in dialogue with life itself, broadcasting a message through pure vibration that every person, situation, and possibility in your field can perceive and respond to, even if they have no conscious awareness that this communication is happening. Right now, the message your energy is transmitting is remarkably simple, yet profoundly powerful. I am in harmony. I am available to receive and share from peace. That's it. No complicated demands, no desperate pleading, no anxious grasping for specific outcomes. Just this clear, coherent signal that propagates outward from your center like gentle waves moving across still water. And here's what makes this so effective. Harmony recognizes harmony. Peace attracts peace. Coherence amplifies coherence. The universe isn't random chaos that occasionally grants wishes to the lucky few. It's an intelligent, responsive field that mirrors back to you the predominant frequency you're broadcasting. When you were broadcasting fragmentation, life reflected that back as disconnected circumstances, conflicting opportunities, relationships that felt chaotic. When you were broadcasting fear, reality organized itself to give you things to be afraid of because that's what you were tuned to perceive and attract. But now that you're broadcasting coherence and peace, something fundamentally different is happening. You're no longer pulling toward you the scattered reflections of an agitated state. You're magnetizing experiences, people, and possibilities that match this new frequency of calm certainty. The impact of this shift accumulates exponentially. Each positive reflection reinforces your coherence, which broadcasts an even clearer signal, which attracts even more aligned circumstances. This is why transformation can seem to accelerate once it reaches a certain threshold. You've entered a virtuous cycle where your internal state and external reality are mutually reinforcing rather than mutually undermining. But here's where something even more subtle and powerful wants to emerge, something that takes this entire process to a depth most people never reach, because they're so focused on what they're getting that they miss the transformative power of recognizing what they already have. As your energy settles into this new coherence and life begins reflecting it back to you, there's a natural movement toward gratitude, but not the kind of gratitude you've been taught, not the mechanical "I should be grateful," or the strategic gratitude that's really just another manifestation technique in disguise. This is something that appears spontaneously when your soul recognizes the silent perfection of the moment it's inhabiting, when you suddenly perceive that absolutely nothing needs to be different for everything to be complete right now. This kind of gratitude doesn't come from comparing your life to others who have less. It doesn't emerge from counting your blessings like items on an inventory list. It arises from a direct perception of the extraordinary gift of existence itself, the fact that you're here, breathing, conscious, capable of experiencing this unfolding mystery. When that recognition hits you, not as a concept but as a felt reality in your body, it changes your entire relationship to receiving and creating. Most people approach life from a sense of lack, always reaching for the next thing that will finally make them feel complete. But when gratitude emerges from soul recognition, you start operating from a sense of fundamental abundance that has nothing to do with how much you have in material terms. You recognize that you've been surrounded by wealth you weren't perceiving, the wealth of breath, of consciousness, of connection, of possibility. And paradoxically, the moment you recognize you already have everything essential, you become available to receive even more because you're no longer grasping from desperation. If this gratitude is beginning to emerge naturally, write in the comments, "I see the abundance that's always been here." Now, as this authentic gratitude begins to permeate your being, something remarkable happens at the energetic level that explains why grateful people seem to attract more abundance. And it has nothing to do with some cosmic reward system or a universe that plays favorites. Gratitude itself is an extraordinarily elevated vibration, one of the highest frequencies human consciousness can generate. And here's the hidden truth about high-frequency vibrations. They have an organizing effect on everything they touch, the way a tuning fork can bring other instruments into harmony with its pure tone. When you experience genuine gratitude, not the forced kind where you're trying to manipulate outcomes, but the spontaneous recognition of what's already present, your entire energetic field begins broadcasting at this elevated frequency. And because coherence naturally attracts more coherence, because harmony calls to harmony across the field of possibility, your reality begins reorganizing itself to match that vibration. This isn't the universe rewarding you for being grateful. This is simply how energy works. High-frequency states create high-frequency experiences. The universe doesn't judge or choose, it responds. What makes this so powerful is that gratitude can be generated even without concrete external reasons. You don't need to wait until your circumstances improve to feel grateful. In fact, the causation runs in the opposite direction. When you find gratitude for what is, circumstances shift to give you more to be grateful for. This seems paradoxical to the logical mind, which insists you should only be grateful after receiving something good. But the Heart knows better. The heart understands that gratitude isn't a reaction to abundance, it's the vibration that creates abundance. As this elevated state continues to establish itself, something that's been dormant within you throughout this entire journey suddenly awakens with clarity and purpose. This is the creative impulse, but not the frantic, anxious striving you might have experienced before. Not the desperate attempt to make something happen or prove your worth through productivity. This is creation emerging from wholeness rather than lack, from inspiration rather than desperation, from alignment rather than force. You're beginning to recognize something that completely transforms your relationship to manifesting, building, and bringing new things into existence. Creation isn't about imposing your will on resistant matter or forcing outcomes through sheer determination. Real creation happens when you become so clear, so coherent, so aligned with your deepest purpose that energy naturally wants to manifest through you. It's like becoming a finely tuned instrument when every string is properly tensioned and every component is in harmony. The slightest touch produces beautiful music. But when the instrument is out of tune, no amount of effort produces anything but noise. This is where so many people exhaust themselves, trying to create from a state of internal disharmony and wondering why their efforts feel like pushing a boulder uphill. They're attempting to force manifestation through an instrument that's fundamentally out of alignment. But you've spent this entire journey tuning yourself, clearing the blockages, releasing the tensions, establishing coherence, anchoring in trust. Now, the creative impulse that awakens within you has a clear channel through which to flow. The difference between creating from anxiety and creating from alignment is night and day. Anxious creation is exhausting because you're swimming against the current, trying to make something happen that isn't naturally wanting to emerge. Aligned creation is effortless because you're simply allowing what wants to come through you to find its form. You're not generating the music. You're the instrument through which the music plays itself. And when you understand this, the entire struggle around achievement and accomplishment dissolves. Ideas begin flowing without you having to strain for them. Solutions appear without you forcing yourself through endless analysis. The next right action becomes obvious without you needing to map out every step. This is the hidden truth behind every great creative work, every genuine innovation, every contribution that actually makes a difference. It came through someone who got themselves out of the way enough to let something larger express itself. If you're feeling this shift from forcing to allowing, from anxiety to flow, write in the comments, "Creation moves through me." Now, as this creative flow begins moving through you with increasing ease, it's essential to understand the actual mechanism that makes creation work at this level. Because when you grasp this, you stop wasting energy on strategies that were never going to produce the results you wanted. Creation at this depth doesn't come from control or meticulous planning or forcing outcomes through willpower. It emerges from the combination of two things: absolute clarity about what wants to come through you, and complete detachment from how and when it manifests. These might seem contradictory. How can you be clear about something while simultaneously being detached from it? But this is where most people misunderstand the creative process entirely. Clarity means you know the essence of what you're creating, the feeling of it, the energy it carries, the purpose it serves. Detachment means you're not strangling that essence with demands about the specific form it must take or the timeline it must follow. You're holding the vision lightly enough that it has room to manifest in ways that might be even better than what your limited perspective could imagine. Here's the hidden truth that changes everything. Every thought you think that's accompanied by genuine emotion becomes a message that life hears and responds to. Not your surface thoughts, the random mental chatter that fills most of your waking hours. Those have minimal creative power because they're not energized by feeling. But when a thought and an emotion combine, when you think something and feel it simultaneously, you're sending out a signal of remarkable potency that the field of reality can't ignore. Tonight, as your energy has reached this state of alignment, the messages you're broadcasting are fundamentally different from what you've been sending for most of your life. They're being born from conscious love rather than unconscious fear, from clarity rather than confusion, from serene purpose rather than desperate grasping. The impact of this shift in the quality of your creative broadcasts is profound. Where before you might have been unconsciously creating from anxiety, broadcasting messages like, "I'm not enough, I need to prove myself, I'm afraid I'll fail," now you're creating from wholeness. The universe receives a completely different set of instructions and organizes circumstances to match. This is why people who reach this state often describe feeling like life is suddenly working with them rather than against them. It's not that they got lucky or that circumstances randomly improved. It's that they stopped broadcasting the frequency of struggle and started broadcasting the frequency of flow. And as this continues, as you maintain this state of aligned creation and detached clarity, something else begins revealing itself that proves beyond any doubt that you're not navigating this journey alone. You start noticing what most people dismiss as coincidence, but what you're beginning to recognize as something far more significant: the silent language through which life itself communicates. This is how the universe confirms you're on track, how it offers guidance without words, how it demonstrates that there's intelligence woven through reality that's responding to your evolution. Synchronicities multiply when you reach this stage. The book you needed appears in a conversation. The person who has exactly the skill you're looking for crosses your path. The solution to a problem arrives through a completely unexpected channel. These aren't random accidents. They're life's way of reminding you that you don't walk this path alone, that there's a broader framework supporting every step you take, orchestrating connections and timing in ways your conscious mind could never arrange. Most people experience occasional synchronicity and write it off as lucky timing. But when you're operating from this level of coherence, synchronicity becomes almost constant because you've tuned yourself to the frequency where you can perceive it. It was always there. Life was always speaking this silent language, but you couldn't hear it through the noise of internal fragmentation. Now that you've quieted that noise, now that your signal is clear, you can receive the responses that have always been coming. If you're beginning to notice this silent communication, these meaningful coincidences, write in the comments, "I hear life speaking." Now, as you become increasingly attuned to this silent dialogue with life, as synchronicities reveal the intelligent fabric underlying reality, something even more profound begins to emerge from the depths of your being. This is wisdom making its appearance, but not in the way you might expect if you've been conditioned to think wisdom comes from accumulating information or studying ancient texts. Real wisdom doesn't announce itself with fanfare or proclaim absolute truths that demand your acceptance. It grows the way deep roots extend underground, slowly, patiently, invisibly, yet with such strength that they can sustain massive structures above without anyone seeing the foundation that makes it all possible. This wisdom emerging in you right now isn't something you're learning from external sources. It's something you're remembering from a place deeper than memory, a knowing that exists beneath language and thought. It's the intelligence of your soul finally getting clear enough signal to communicate with your conscious awareness. And here's what makes this so different from intellectual knowledge. Intellectual knowledge tells you about things, gives you information you can recite and reference. Wisdom shows you how things actually work through direct perception. It doesn't need to be proven because it proves itself through lived experience. You might notice this as a shift in how you make decisions, where before you needed to analyze every option, weigh pros and cons, seek advice from multiple sources, now there's often just a quiet knowing about what's right. Not certainty born from having all the information. You might have less data than ever before, but certainty born from being connected to a deeper current of intelligence that sees patterns your rational mind can't perceive. This is wisdom operating through you, and the more you trust it, the stronger and clearer it becomes. The impact of accessing this silent intelligence transforms everything about how you navigate complexity. Problems that would have overwhelmed you with their intricacy suddenly reveal simple solutions. Situations that seemed to require complicated strategies resolve themselves through straightforward action. Relationships that felt impossible to understand become transparent once you're perceiving them through wisdom rather than just analyzing them through thought. This doesn't mean life becomes easy. It means you become capable of meeting whatever arises with a groundedness that doesn't get shaken by surface turbulence. But here's where something truly fundamental wants to establish itself, something that roots this entire journey in a connection so primary that without it, everything else floats untethered. As your wisdom deepens and your coherence stabilizes, there's a natural movement toward conscious reunion with the source from which everything in you emerged. Not some abstract spiritual concept of source, but the actual physical earth whose elements literally compose your body right now. Every atom in your bones was forged in the heart of an ancient star and eventually became part of this planet's crust. The iron in your blood is the same iron that runs through mountain ranges. The water that makes up most of your body has been rain and river and ocean countless times before flowing through your veins. The oxygen you breathe was exhaled by forests. The calcium in your skeleton was once coral reef. You are not on the earth, or even just living on it. You are a temporary arrangement of the earth itself, organized into consciousness for a brief moment before returning to other forms. When this recognition drops from concept into felt experience, when you actually perceive yourself as earth becoming aware of itself through your nervous system, something shifts at the deepest possible level. The isolation that's haunted humanity since we developed enough self-awareness to feel separate dissolves. You recognize you've never been alone because you've never been separate. The planet's intelligence has been flowing through you all along. You are one of the ways it thinks, feels, creates, loves. If you're feeling this reconnection with Earth, this remembering that you are her, write in the comments, "I am Earth awakening." Now, as this conscious reunion with Earth deepens and you recognize yourself as inseparable from the planet's living intelligence, something absolutely fundamental begins to activate within your system that's been dormant in most people since childhood. This is the opening of your natural healing wisdom, the innate capacity every human possesses to restore balance, not through external intervention, but through remembering what wholeness actually feels like. And here's the revelation that changes everything about how you relate to healing, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual. Healing isn't about fixing something that's broken or repairing a defect in your design. You were never broken. Your body was never defective. Your emotions were never wrong. Your energy was never damaged beyond repair. What happened is that you forgot the feeling of your original harmony, forgot what coherence feels like in your cells, forgot the natural state of balance that's your birthright. And in that forgetting, patterns of disease and dysfunction took root, not because something went fundamentally wrong with you, but because you lost connection to the template of wholeness that's been encoded in you since before you were born. This template still exists. It's never been destroyed or corrupted. It's been waiting patiently for you to remember it. And tonight, that remembering begins. You might feel this as warmth moving through areas of your body that have been numb or painful. You might sense energy flowing into places that felt blocked or stagnant. You might experience emotions releasing that have been stored in your tissues for years. All of this is your system recognizing its original pattern and beginning to realign with it. This isn't you doing healing. This is healing doing itself. Through you, once you stop interfering with the natural intelligence that's always been present. The impact of this activation extends far beyond your personal health. When you reconnect with your innate healing wisdom, you become a carrier of that wisdom for others, broadcasting a frequency that reminds other systems of their own capacity to restore balance. But something even more significant happens as this healing wisdom stabilizes within you and your entire being settles into the coherent state you've been cultivating throughout this journey. The light that's been growing in your chest, the golden presence that represents your unique frequency and purpose and power, reaches a point where it can no longer remain contained within the boundaries of your individual energy field. Not because you're trying to project it outward or because you have some agenda to change the world, but simply because that's the nature of coherent light. It naturally expands, touching whatever is near it, illuminating without effort or intention. This is where your transformation stops being just about you and becomes something that serves the collective evolution of consciousness on this planet. Every being who vibrates in coherence, who has done the inner work to clear their channel and align with their deepest truth, becomes an automatic beacon for others. You don't have to try to help people or fix anyone or convince them of anything. Your mere presence, your energetic signature broadcasting, at this frequency of alignment, effortlessly awakens the same potential in everyone you encounter. It's like one tuning fork causing another to vibrate at the same frequency just by being near it. No force required, no manipulation needed, just pure resonance. The hidden truth here is that collective transformation doesn't happen through millions of people all making conscious decisions to change simultaneously. It happens through a critical mass of individuals reaching coherence and then, naturally, unconsciously, inevitably influencing everyone in their field. You become part of that critical mass, not by evangelizing or teaching or convincing, but simply by being what you've become through this process. Your calm settles others without a word spoken. Your presence reminds people of possibilities they'd forgotten existed. Your energy creates permission for others to remember their own wholeness. If you're feeling this expansion beyond yourself, this natural overflow that serves something larger, write in the comments, "My light serves the whole." Now, as we reach this point together, I want to take a moment to acknowledge what just happened here. You didn't just watch a video, you participated in an actual energetic process. The fact that you're still here, that you stayed present through this entire journey, tells me something important about who you are and what you're ready for. Most people would have clicked away within the first few minutes, but you recognized something in this that your deeper intelligence knew you needed. If this resonated with you, if you felt the shifts happening as we move through these stages together, then you're exactly the kind of person this channel exists to serve. We're building a community of people who understand that real transformation isn't about surface-level techniques or quick fixes. It's about the deep, fundamental work of remembering who you actually are beneath all the conditioning. So, if that speaks to you, hit that subscribe button, not because I'm asking you to, but because you'll want access to what's coming next. Everything we create here is designed to support this kind of genuine evolution, and I'd love to know you made it all the way through. Write in the comments, "This message was meant for me." When I see that, I'll know you were really present for this journey, and it helps me understand what's landing with the people who are truly committed to this path. If you felt something shift during this process, If there was even one moment where you recognized yourself differently, go ahead and hit that like button. It's a simple gesture, but it tells me this format is working, that creating these longer, more immersive experiences serves you in ways that shorter content can't. There's something else I want to share with you that builds on what we explored here. There's a video right over there that goes deeper into how to maintain these states in your daily life when the world is pulling you back toward old patterns. Click and continue with me there. I think you'll find it takes you even further into what just opened up for you here. Thank you for trusting this process. Thank you for giving yourself this time. I'll see you in the next one.